All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the first, what is the first podcast exclusive here for Logic Nation Radio. We're having some technical difficulties in the studio today, and we're running a best of show. But since we're here anyway, thought we'd do a quick podcast, especially for our YouTube audience. That way, there's something a little new, something a little fresh, something a little different that is only exclusive to our YouTube subscribers. And mainly what I wanted to do, since it is me here, Jeremy, how you doing? How's the audio sound? I guess I should ask that question first. I know it's going to be a little bit of a delay, so I'll wait for him to answer. So what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about some of the news that's going on first, and then really kind of drill down for about a half an hour or so into what is constitutional carry? Because one of the things I've learned as I've worked around the Capitol is that there's a lot of misunderstandings about what constitutional carry is. And obviously, on the radio format, it's very difficult to drill down into details because you've got all the breaks, you've got the callers, and you can still call the number 866-895-6442 during the live podcast only. So if you're listening to this from 8 to 9 on April Fool's Day, and no, the show being down is not an April Fool's joke. Maybe the joke's on us, but this is real. We don't have a show today. One of our power supplies in the computer went down. So anyway, I wanted to kind of drill into what constitutional carry is. Maybe you can share this video for those that don't get it, because there's a lot of misunderstandings out there. For example, felons are going to carry, and gangs are going to carry, and felons are going to carry, and it's just going to be mayhem, and cats are going to start sleeping with dogs, and it's going to be worse. It's going to be terrible. And I want to cover down on that at the second half of this hour. But if you want to call in and ask questions about Texas gun laws or constitutional carry, or what your reservations are, or what you can do, the number is still active, 866-895-6442, while we're live. And I can take your phone call live during the show if you're interested in doing that. But first, a couple of interesting stories I wanted to get to that we were going to talk about today anyway, but we can't because the show is the way it is. Mark Zuckerberg, a great friend of mine, probably one of the closest people I know, because he and I have had so many close interactions. He's thrown me into Facebook jail so many times. I feel like he's a good friend of mine. I feel like he and I are just tight. Like I can call and go to him for anything, anytime I need a good 30-day vacation from Facebook. He's always there for me to put me in Facebook jail and prevent me from spreading truth and conservative values, and, of course, triggering some of the liberals out there. He's actually asking for the government to regulate his internet site, social networking. He's asking the government to take a more active role in regulations. He says there's a need for governments and watchdogs to be more active in this whole thing. And this all follows, of course, the live streaming on social media of the Christchurch terror attack in New Zealand, which was viewed over 4,000 times before, well, theoretically being removed. And yes, it's been removed from social media. But my question is this, Mr. Zuckerberg: exactly how do you expect the government to control something like that, unless you just completely ban and censor any and all live streaming? The only way you're going to be able to fix that is if the government has to personally approve every single live streaming event, or create regulations that requires someone, generally everyone with an agenda, to personally review and approve. It's like, in some of the groups that I manage on Facebook, actually almost all the groups I manage on Facebook, before someone can post, they submit that post, and then an administrator has to approve it first. So, for example, in Open Carry Texas, we don't allow any posts that are not gun rights related or gun related in some way, or self-defense related. Doesn't even have to be guns, Second Amendment related. If it's not Second Amendment related, we just don't approve the post. Additionally, we only allow people into the group, because it's a private group, who are pro-gun. So, of course, we look through profiles. We try to do some research on who this individual is before we approve their membership, because the group, the private group, is for like-minded people. Now, the public page, anybody can post anything they want and make themselves look like fools, but our idea is to have a safe place for people to go and talk about gun rights without having to worry about trolls. Trolls are immediately banned. So the only way that the government can do this, according to what Zuckerberg wants, is to have a similar thing for all of social media. Can you imagine government having to go to government to get permission to post something on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or wherever before that post is approved? It's got to go through some government or government-sponsored censor. So the government creates regulations, social media creates the censorship based on those regulations. That's pretty much what Zuckerberg is asking for. He says that by updating the rules for the internet, we can preserve what's best about it. Now, this is the irony of his statement. Listen to the rest of this. By updating the rules for the internet, we can preserve what's best about it. The freedom for people to express themselves and for entrepreneurs to build new things. Do you think you have freedom? So we don't have, technically, we don't have a lot of government regulation as it is for what we say today. Look all over the place. Conservatives are being censored all over social media. So there's already no freedom of speech. You think that when government gets involved, there's going to be freedom of speech? No, it's not. So that's just, the UK is already doing this. Look at New Zealand right now. If you have in your possession the video of that shooting that happened in New Zealand, you could go to jail for 10 years. That's how bad that is. You want to talk about regulating free speech? So there's a lot of irony in the fact that Zuckerberg says he wants to, quote, update the rules for the internet in order to, quote, preserve the freedom for people to express themselves. No, it's the freedom to express yourselves as long as we agree with what it is you're saying. This is interesting. Buttigieg. Now, never mind. I won't say it on the podcast the way I pronounce it. Well, yeah, I say it online. But Buttigieg has raised $7 million. This is a nobody. Nobody knew who this guy was 3 months ago. He was one of the first ones, if I'm not mistaken, one of the first guys to actually announce that he's going to run for president under the Democratic ticket. He raised $7 million in the first quarter. $7 million. And by the way, AOC tweeted out yesterday, they did a quick last-minute fundraiser for their Act Blue fundraising platform, raised $30,000 in just 2 hours for candidates in swing states. If you don't think the Democrats are on the move, the Democrats are on the move. Buttigieg says that, now he's the former Democratic mayor in South Bend, Indiana. He's the gay, I don't know what else is. He's just like everyone else, except I think he's the only gay male besides Cory Booker, who hasn't outed himself yet, that's running in this race. But we are outperforming expectations at every turn, he said. I'll have a more complete analysis later, but until then, a big thank you to our supporters. $7 million.
Real quick, also, he's a veteran.
And that's right.
Yes, he is a veteran.
He is a veteran. Yes, he was in Afghanistan. So there's a little bit extra for him, but it doesn't look like I don't see any of the other numbers here yet. But that's a big number for somebody that nobody knows, and probably even today, unless you're into politics, you probably have no idea who Buttigieg is. But he's a force to be reckoned with already. He's already met the standard to be into the Democrat debates. Meanwhile, Julian Castro from Texas we don't know if he made it last night or not. I know he was begging as many people as possible for $1 donations on his Twitter. but he had not, as of yesterday, met his 69,000 donation threshold to be included in the debates for the Democratic primary. All right, the Pope. The Pope is criticizing building walls to keep immigrants out. He says builders of walls, be they made of razor wire or bricks, will end up becoming prisoners of the walls they build. Says the guy who lives at the Vatican where there are giant walls. And good morning, Karen and Jeremy. Hey, I'll get to the reciprocity permit law here in a little bit. I'll get to the gun rights stuff. I want to get rid of just a few interesting news things that we were covering today. And then I'll get into the gun stuff for the second half hour. Unaccompanied children stuck in Tijuana hoping to reach the U.S. More than 50 children are awaiting. Some migrants have traveled by themselves, supposedly, up to the U.S. border, have not been allowed to request asylum despite assurances from federal immigration officials that they prioritize unaccompanied minors. Listen, folks, these illegal immigrants are using children, they're weaponizing children to use against our immigration policies. Who in their right mind would send their children away to a foreign country where they have no family with people that they aren't related to? This is what we call human trafficking, but for some reason, because these people are asking for asylum, suddenly we're looking past it. It's insane. And all it is it's used to play on the emotions of the American people. Oh, the poor children. You know, who created this? Not the United States. The United States didn't create this problem. The countries of El Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico, they created this problem, and they're sending it up to our border. So that's not something, I don't play the emotional game, so it doesn't bother me. It bothers me, of course, that they're children, but it's not our fault. It's the parents' fault. Who sends their child to go and languish on a border knowing that it's against the law to come in here illegally? So, all right, there's that. Here's a story Luann sent me yesterday, or actually I think it was this weekend at some point. The Hells Angels are selling their Lower East Side clubhouse. It's a building that's been their headquarters for over 50 years, and they're selling it to a developer. It's called the Church of the Angels, and over the decades, the Angels were a visible presence in that neighborhood, from hanging out at Punk Dive CBGB back in the 70s to loafing on a bench outside the club. But now they're really upset because a bunch of soy latte drinking liberals are taking pictures out there by their motorcycles and sitting on their motorcycles. Some of these bikers were implicated in a 2016 shooting and a 2018 beating of a delivery man. The feds tried to seize the building after a drug bust in 1985, but a jury ruled against them in 1994. So it took about 9 years to get that. But the poor Hells Angels being pushed out of the Lower East Side in New York City, going to have to find themselves a new place to live there. All right. And Dianne Feinstein, I guess this is kind of, actually, I'll save this one because this is going to go, I'll use this as a transition into our gun segment here. But Michael Avenatti, creepy porn lawyer. Michael Avenatti's been accused of improperly keeping a $4 million personal injury settlement payout away from a paraplegic man. The Michael Avenatti is also alleged to have hid $1 million from creditors. This all comes as Avenatti was charged with wire and bank fraud on Monday, with federal authorities saying he attempted to extract more than $20 million from Nike. There is nothing good about this guy. How many times can you be accused of millions of dollars of trying to extort money from people, and at some point it's not true? So the news comes as Avenatti was charged with wire bank. I already said that. He also owes $10 million in unpaid profits from his former law firm, Egan Avenatti, which sent his firm into bankruptcy proceedings. So everything's all about Avenatti. Everyone else around him, like Stormy Daniels, who has to make a huge $150,000 payout after her failed lawsuits against Trump. Everyone around Avenatti seems to be going bankrupt or losing money, except Avenatti, who's got money squirreled out somewhere. Who knows? What a creepy guy. Beto O'Rourke the media's been hitting him lately because he's a bit light when it comes to policy. And if you heard him this weekend, he made a whirlwind tour of Texas on his campaign, starting at 11 o'clock in El Paso. Then from there had a 5 o'clock event. Yes, the Vatican does have a wall. At 5 o'clock, had an event in Houston, and then a supposedly 9 o'clock event in Austin, where we had some people. Now, we had some people in El Paso, Open Carry, Texas, did El Paso, Houston, and Austin to counter-protest at each of those. The one I was paying attention to that we live-streamed was the Austin event. Beto shows up an hour and a half late, hour and 40 minutes late, I think it was, gives a 20-minute speech that is completely void of anything of substance. And the media is starting to take notice. The media has been hitting on Arfo, as we call him here, Robert Francis O'Rourke. We call him Arfo. Well, the last people he crowdsourced must have been pretty far left because this was the latest troubling comment from O'Rourke. The unprecedented concentration of wealth, power, and privilege in the United States must be broken apart. I guess I need to say that for the camera a little bit better. The unprecedented concentration of wealth, power, and privilege in the United States must be broken apart. Opportunity must be fully shared with all. We must all have the opportunity to succeed together as one country. Think about what he's saying here. The unprecedented concentration of wealth, power, and privilege must be broken apart. Mr. Beto, how do you do that? If I'm one of those people that you've arbitrarily decided is part of the concentration of wealth, power, and privilege, how do you, quote, break that apart? Because it sounds to me like what you're going to do is you're going to violently take from someone. Although I guess with the government, all you do is you just take their bank accounts, and there's not really a lot you can do physically about that. But how do you do that? And first of all, there is no concentration of wealth. There's no finite source of wealth. Wealth is created through innovation. Wealth is created through capitalism. So it's not like there's only a quadrillion dollars out there and it just all gets kind of shuffled around. There's a reason the economy grows. An economy grows because wealth expands. Luann, everyone listening to this podcast has the opportunity to concentrate your own wealth. There's no limit to that. It's not like there's only X percentage of money out there and you've got to be able to grab 0.5% of that or you've got nothing. No, you have just as much of a chance to be a quadrillionaire as anybody else does. So there is no concentration of wealth. This is Marxist speak. This is what the socialists and the Marxists want you to believe is they use these fear-mongering tactics of you thinking that, oh my gosh, if we don't check these guys, they're going to steal all the money. None of us are going to have any of it. And meanwhile, we all have the ability to earn money either as workers, as entrepreneurs, as people who create things, as people who employ others, as people who have labor to give, skills, talents, whatever it is. But Beto wants to take that from you. Beto wants America apparently to be a Marxist or communist sort of political philosophy here in the United States. So that should scare everyone. And the fact that he's coming out of El Paso and Texas, of all places, although he wasn't really born here, but he was kind of raised here. So I guess, I'll give him that much. All right. Then we've got AOC. I'm going to see if I'm able to play this for the podcast. This may or may not work. I'm going to try to play this. And this is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. According to her, Congress amended the Constitution to prevent Franklin Delano Roosevelt from being reelected. We all know what FDR was famous for and why Ocasio thinks that he's such a great person. But let's listen to what she has to say. Let's see if this doesn't work. I'll just kind of read it.
When our party was boldest, the time of the New Deal, the Great Society, the Civil Rights Act, and so on, we had and carried supermajorities in the House, in the Senate. We carried the presidency. They had to amend the Constitution of the United States to make sure Roosevelt did not get reelected. And there were so many extraordinary things that were happening in that time that were uniting working people.
All right, so she says that we had to amend this quote. They had to amend the Constitution of the United States to make sure Roosevelt did not get reelected. She's talking about the 22nd Amendment right there, where it limits the president to 2 terms in office. For those of you who don't know, the Second Amendment was ratified in 1947. FDR died in office in 1945, 2 years earlier. So were the Democrats trying to reelect a dead man? Is that what she's talking about? Ocasio-Cortez is she's an economics major. She definitely slept through her history courses in order to get that degree. And finally, before we move on to some gun stuff here, do you remember the story back? I think it was in February, or it might have been January, but she was interviewed. No, it must have been last year. Okay, it was late last year. She was interviewed at a migrant shelter in Tijuana by a German network. And during that interview, she complained about being given a plate of beans for food. And she and her daughter were obviously tired from that journey, but she called it comida de chanchos, which is pig food. So she complained about the fact that, oh my gosh, look, we get all this way and all we're given is pig food, or comida de chanchos. And so this woman who became, went viral, and of course the left was all over, oh my gosh, look, they're making them eat refried beans. The woman is now facing, she's in Texas, in a Texas jail now, keep in mind, this was in Tijuana. So how she got from Tijuana to Texas, if you don't think this is a problem, folks, if you think that they just cross the border and stick there, they move all over the place. Now, how she ended up in Texas, I don't know. But she's facing a charge of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon right now. She's in jail in Dallas County, Sanctuary City, Dallas County. Sanctuary County, I guess, Dallas County. And her and Myrna, I guess that's her, I don't know who that is, another woman that she was with, probably a sister. They're both being held in a detention center charged with aggravated assault of a deadly weapon, but the court records don't say exactly what led to the charge, just that the Mundo Hispanico, which is a news outlet, they revealed that the 2 women allegedly beat another woman who was providing them with housing. This is your open borders. This is what you get right here. So even a woman that doesn't like, if you're going to complain about the fact that all you've got to eat are refried beans, don't think that these kind of people aren't going to complain about everything else they're given in life. Oh, you gave me food. Thank you oh, what? This sounds like my kids sometimes, Oh, I'm so hungry. Then you make them food. Like, I don't like that. I don't want to eat that. So she gets a house, and what does she do? Someone provides her housing, and she beats them. Now she's in jail. There you go. We got to secure this border. The U.S. trial, really quick. Actually, one more. Here we go. There's a story in the Wall Street Journal this weekend that would make a tax on robocalls, which I think can't come quickly enough. Is it annoying? It's annoying as crap. No matter how many times you sign up for the no-call list, it seems like they're always calling you anyway. As a matter of fact, I think since I signed up for the no-call list, I probably get more calls. And what really sucks about these robocalls is if I don't recognize a number, I just don't answer it anymore. And it might be somebody that I need to talk to or that legitimately needs to talk to me, but they have to leave a message, and I may or may not be, see that message in time. And so the robocalls have just done nothing but make it difficult for people to talk to real people. President Trump can become wildly popular, according to the Washington Post, if he imposes a tax on robocalls, according to Roger Miners. Robocalls are the top sources of complaints to both the FCC and the FTC. There were nearly 50 billion with a B of these nuisances in 2018. 50 billion. Keep in mind, we've got 357 million people in this country. I don't know how many of those have cell phones. So, strip that number down, maybe half. Maybe half of those people have them. I mean, you're talking a lot of phone calls. Stamping them out is a whack-a-mole problem, according to the federal agencies. As with most scams and irritating business practices, it's easy to set up new companies, evade regulators, skirt legal definitions, and just roll right along. Then, of course, you've got due process and freedom of speech, which come into play. But look, if you can tax my right to keep and bear arms, you can tax someone's right to harass my phone without my permission. So the problem is that, according to this, because the tax would apply to all calls, well, let me back up. So why not use the taxing power? Most taxes aren't popular, but this one would be. Call it the penny for sanity tax. A 1-cent tax on every call made. Okay, you just lost me. On every call made, 50 billion robocalls would cost $500 million, a powerful incentive to stop. Because the tax would apply to all calls, it would avoid litigation about what can be legally disfavored. It would be impossible to evade by sneaking around classifications of calls, and it would not necessitate hiring more bureaucrats to enforce a complicated rule. So you and I would also pay the tax on our legitimate phone calls, so I say no. I guess I just continue to not answer those phone calls. I would just rather do that than give the federal government more money, because what's the point? What are they going to do with that money anyway? Are they going to go after these guys? No, it's just a tax. It's just a way to get more money out of you and I on making normal phone calls. So it sounds like a great idea, doesn't it? I mean, it really does, because robocalls are annoying. Who's not annoyed by robocalls? And then who watches the Hate Watchers? The Southern Poverty Law Center, which turned fighting hate into big business, is taking a long look in the mirror. 2 weeks ago, they fired their co-founder, Morris Dees, with a vague statement about employee conduct. The SPLC then hired Tina Chen. Anybody recognize that name? Tina Chen is the former chief of staff to Michelle Obama, the first man of the White House. The first lady. Did I say that? To conduct what the board chairman called a top-to-bottom external review of our workplace. So, the SPLC has an endowment of $470 million. And what do? All the SPLC does is label everybody a hate group that disagrees with them. If you're a conservative, you're a hate group. Open Carry, Texas, a hate group, according to the SPLC. All right, so what we're going to do for the rest of the show here. My transition with this story of Dianne Feinstein. And then I want to talk a lot about constitutional carry. And I want to get this out there. We've got 29 minutes right now to really flush this out. If you've got any questions about constitutional carry, if you don't understand something, give us a call, 866-895-6442. Again, we're not live on the air. This is strictly a YouTube podcast. So you can ask just about anything. Just still be respectful of our audience. That is on YouTube anyway. But we aren't regulated by FCC on this podcast. We're going to talk about gun rights and specifically constitutional carry. But before we do that, there's a threat. The threat is Dianne Feinstein. Feinstein is pushing red flag laws, or what we call confiscatory laws. She sent a tweet out a couple days ago that I saved up here. It says, one common thread that runs through mass shootings in this country is that family and friends are often the first to be aware that perpetrators pose threats to themselves or others, but too often, police and families have no power to act. Our bill, she continues in a second tweet, would help states establish a court process to allow that to happen. Already, 14 states and the District of Columbia have laws allowing extreme risk protection orders or red flag laws. The federal government should support other states that want to follow their lead. Here's the problem. Red flag laws, there is no due process in red flag laws. Not a single red flag law in any of those 14 states and the District of Columbia that she talks about has a single bit of due process prior to taking away someone's firearms that they have a legal right to keep. What these red flag laws do is if someone, a family member, a police officer, in some cases anybody, can flag a person, or in other words, report a person that they believe to be a danger to the public, to others, to themselves. Yes, even themselves. So if a person is depressed and someone else believes that that depression might lead to suicide, all they've got to do is go to the authorities and say, hey, I think this person's going to kill themselves, and they have guns. And what the government is doing in some of these states is they're going out and they're taking the guns from these people without due process. Hey, good morning, Terry. The problem is this. This is the fallacy of red flag laws. The fallacy is if someone is a threat to you, to the public, or to themselves, and you go and you take their guns, but you leave them with knives, saws, hammers, electricity, rope, cars, trucks, bridges, rocks, you name it. Did I say knives? I'm pretty sure I said knives. Daggers, swords, screwdrivers, nail guns, whatever, bows and arrows. You've left that person who is the danger in society? Is it the firearm or is it the person? So if somebody is a threat and someone has, legitimate or not, has a legitimate feeling that that person is going to hurt someone else, who's going to hurt someone? Is the gun going to hurt somebody, or is the person going to hurt somebody? I think everyone that has a brain, so probably not a lot of leftists, everyone would agree that the person is the threat, not the gun, not the object. Because the object just sits there. Right now, my guns are not doing anything. They're sitting where they're sitting. I'm not going to say where they're sitting, of course. But they are sitting where they're sitting in a controlled environment, in a safe environment, and they won't do... If I'm a threat right now, right this very second, if I'm a threat to someone, my guns that are at my house or wherever, or even on me, they're not a threat to anyone. I am the threat. Good morning, Sean. And so what these red flag laws do is they take away objects, but they don't take away the threat that supposedly red flag laws are intended to address. So you take away the guns, but you leave the threatening person in society. That is the inherent flaw in red flag laws. But that's not really what the left and Democrats are pushing red flag laws for. They're not pushing red flag laws to make you safe. They're pushing red flag laws as a way to confiscate your firearms, period. Even after you are cleared, after a confiscation, it is incredibly difficult and expensive to get your guns back in many of these cases. It's incredibly difficult and incredibly expensive. So if someone is truly a threat, here's an idea. This is a novel idea here. If you can prove that someone's a threat, then a court should have no problem taking that person off the street. Because that is the threat. If someone is concerned that I'm going to kill my girlfriend or my wife, or you're going to kill your husband or your boyfriend or your neighbor, or if someone's going to shoot up a church, or if someone's going to shoot up a school or a gay nightclub or a mall or a police station or whatever, does it make any sense at all to take that person's guns and leave them out in society? No. Remove the individual. And guess why they won't do that? They won't do that because in order to deprive someone of their liberty, it takes a high degree of probable cause to do so. Whereas if we just take their guns, all we need is an accusation. That's how the laws are written. And that's a problem because that still violates your constitutional rights. But that's not what the Democrats care about. So this is why red flag laws must be opposed no matter what, because all they are is gun confiscation schemes. That's it. It does absolutely nothing to protect society. In states where red flag laws have been passed, they have literally done zero to affect violent crime and especially to affect violent crime involving firearms. I don't use gun violence because there's no such thing as gun violence. It's a myth. Now, here's what's really necessary, because even if we get red flag laws, and 14 states already have these confiscation laws, the problem is that the good people who are truly endangered by dangerous people, in many cases, actually, I take that back, actually in only 14 states. That's weird. There are 14 states with red flag laws, and there are only 14 states that require a license to exercise your right to self-defense. I don't think the two don't correlate, because we don't have a red flag law in Texas, but we do have a license law in Texas. And speaking of license, Jeremy Levitt asked in our chat room there a little while ago, what about reciprocity permit laws? Here's the thing about reciprocity permit laws that I oppose. I oppose a reciprocity permit law that would bring the federal government into state licensing issues. I don't like licensing to begin with. I don't believe in it. And I definitely don't support the federal government getting involved in state licensing issues at all, or even gun rights. Now, the Second Amendment really prohibits the federal government from infringing on rights at all. But what so the only way I could support a reciprocity permit law, what the federal government just needs to do is just tell the states, look, you've got to accept other states' licenses, period. That's it. Or what the federal government could do, and what I would be a little more amenable to, is a voluntary, if you want a 50-state reciprocity license that you can take into every state, then you apply for a federal permit, right? And then it's standardized. Now, then I think that would probably violate, I don't know that it would violate the Second Amendment because they're not forcing you to do anything, but I don't know what the federal government's process for that would be. And do you really want the federal government knowing who all's got the gun permits? But I think if we're going to create a national reciprocity, the best way to do that is to create a single and separate standardized federal permit. Now I'm going to, looks like we lost the call. I said I had a call here, but again, the number is 866-895-6442 if you've got a question. So those are just my thoughts on the reciprocity permit law. The National Reciprocity Act has pretty much died. It's not going anywhere. And we've got our own Senator Ted Cruz. Instead of pushing for national reciprocity, he's actually starting to push for red flag laws, along with Marco Rubio. Constitutional carry is the way to go. Here's what constitutional carry means. Because nothing drives me nuts in the legislature more than when I talk to a legislator or a staff member about constitutional carry and House Bill 357, which we're trying to pass. And I ask, hey, why can't we get Representative so-and-so to sign on as a co-author of this bill? And the response is, well, he's got reservations about he's got reservations about the fact that, he doesn't want to, he wants to make sure gang members can't carry. Well, gang members can't carry. He's worried about felons being able to carry. Felons can't carry. Look, this is what House Bill 357 and what constitutional carry means. All right? It's very, very simple. I'll tell you what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean felons under current law can carry. It doesn't mean that domestic abusers can carry. It doesn't mean that drug addicts can carry. It doesn't mean that prohibited persons that are addicted to narcotics or drugs can carry. All it means is that if you are able to legally purchase, possess, and own a firearm, you're not a prohibited person. If you are a law-abiding citizen, you can carry a firearm, or in other words, let me use the terms of the Second Amendment, you can bear arms without a license. That is what constitutional carry means. It doesn't mean that anyone can carry anything anywhere. There are still rules about where you can carry, and there are still rules about who can carry. Now, a lot of people will say, as I will, that, well, that's still not constitutional carry, because where in the Constitution does it say felons can't carry? That's a very good and rational point. And the way that I highlight that point is this. Martha Stewart is a felon. Martha Stewart isn't a threat to anyone but bad fashion. That's the only threat she poses to society, is if you have bad fashion sense or you don't know how to make good food. That's the only threat to society Martha Stewart is. But yet Martha Stewart, under current law, is prohibited from keeping and bearing arms because she's a quote-unquote felon. Here's the problem with that law. If the government has the ability to determine who does and does not qualify for their right to keep and bear arms, what's to stop them from saying that nobody does? So while I definitely understand that we don't want violent felons carrying firearms, a better question would be instead of how do we keep guns out of the hands of violent felons, a better question would be, why are there violent felons out in society? If people are truly a threat to society because of violent crime that they've committed in the past, why are they out of prison? Why are they out of jail? I posed on a separate podcast someone to tell me, because there's one place where I believe that people should not be allowed to keep and bear arms. And I posed this question on a podcast, a personal podcast, and that answer to that question was prison. Prison is the only place where you have no rights. Your rights have been stricken from you. Your liberty has been stricken from you. A jury has determined, right or wrong, that you should serve time in prison and be taken away from society because you are a threat or in danger to society. That's not always the case, of course. People are in prison for nonviolent crimes. People are in prison for victimless crimes. But if somebody is a danger to society, why are they in society? Once you've served your time, your rights should be reinstated. There is a simple process for felons when they get out of jail to have their voting rights reinstated. When felons get out of jail, they don't lose their right to free speech. They don't lose their right to go to church. They don't lose their right to be free from illegal search and seizure. They don't, although a lot of felons end up finding themselves searched and seized a lot just because of the fact that they have a record. But they don't lose their right to be free of having troops quartered in their homes. They don't lose their right to due process. So why do they lose their right to keep and bear arms? What constitutional carry does is it equals the playing field. It allows law-abiding citizens to catch up with what the criminal element already has, which is constitutional carry. Think about it. We have constitutional carry in this country and in this state already. For example, if you're a law-abiding citizen, you can carry a rifle or a shotgun, any long arm, anywhere you want without a license. Perfectly legal. Literally anywhere you want. Even the 30-06 and 30-07 signs do not apply to a rifle or shotgun. They only apply to a handgun. You can carry a rifle in many places legally that you're not allowed to carry a handgun. Think about that. You can carry a handgun in a vehicle without a license as long as you keep that handgun concealed. That's a version of constitutional carry. And then finally, Not that you can, but if you're a felon, you do carry a firearm everywhere you go. It doesn't matter if it's legal or not. Felons don't care about the law. The law that requires you to get a permit to carry a firearm, a permission slip to exercise a right, only applies to law-abiding citizens. Everyone else besides law-abiding citizens already exercises constitutional carry. And I'll be honest, there are some law-abiding citizens that also exercise their right to keep and bear arms without a permit as well, and just haven't been caught yet. Some would say those people are lawbreakers. I say, well, no, because the Constitution is the law of the land, and that's the way they're carrying. But as it relates to law, and I'm strictly speaking to law right now, the law, quote unquote, prevents or infringes upon the right of law-abiding citizens only. The only people that are affected right now by a licensing scheme are the people who obey the law. Criminals don't care that they have to get a license because they couldn't get one if they tried, so they carry anyway. Once again, this is very simple. What is constitutional carry? Constitutional carry means that if you can purchase, possess, and carry a firearm legally, you are not a prohibited person. You can carry that firearm without a license. We are not talking about gang members because the law, as it's currently written, says that if you're a member of a gang, you're not allowed to keep and bear arms. I don't want anyone to think that I'm agreeing or disagreeing with these laws, okay? Just because someone's in a gang, do I think that they should be disarmed? No. Because what a gang is whatever the government says a gang is. So once again, we've given the government the ability to determine those things. Look at what happened up in Waco with the bikers. So I think we might have a call here. Let's give this a shot. Oh, never mind. I can always tell when it's a spam call because it's on line 3. But the government, by using statutes, can put people into certain categories that they don't belong in. So anyway, so I'm only going by current law, okay? So if you are a gang member, if you're in a gang, oh, actually, I guess we do have some calls. Let's try to do this here. Let's see. All right, Logic Nation, this is CJ. You're on the podcast. Can you hear me? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm guessing you've got a rerun going on the radio.
Oh, yeah. We've got a rerun going on the radio today. We had a power outage today, and our server is not working at all.
Oh, wow. Well, I was going to bring up a subject concerning racism. I don't know if you guys heard about the Japanese guy who was complaining about the license plates in Kansas. Did you hear that story?
I have not.
He's Japanese, and he claims that because they have the characters, which are random, JAP, on their license plates for a given set of plates,
oh my
that
goodness,
it's racist, and he got the state to recall those plates and give the owners new plates.
Wow. So if there's a, for example, CJG plate, which is my name, I can consider that that's offensive and have it removed too?
Yeah, they're taking advantage of your ethnicity or something with those initials, probably.
Wow. I did not hear about that, but if we're able to get back on the air tomorrow live, we're supposed to get a power supply in this afternoon, and we'll be able to. But yeah, we're doing a rerun. We are doing a podcast right now live, but we're not live on air.
I'm driving, so.
All right.
Well, listen, I work for IBM. We could fix your problems.
Well, all right. We're gonna have to probably. We've got a pretty good IT guy. He's fixing it.
Yeah, equipment fails from time to time. It does.
It does.
All right.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Tomorrow, but I'm listening to the rerun.
All right. Take care.
You too.
All right. So back to we're taking calls live because I don't have a call screener today. So 866-895-6442. So it might throw me off every now and then. So yeah. So when you allow the government to pick and choose that. So if you're in a gang, according to current law, you cannot carry a firearm. So constitutional carry would not allow gang members to carry just because there's no licensing requirement. All the requirements are still there. The requirements to being able to legally carry a firearm. HB 357, which is the constitutional carry bill, does not change that. It also does not change if you are dependent upon chemical substances or drugs. You won't be able to carry under HB 357 either. If you are a prohibited person, a felon, you will not be able to carry without a license, period. Oh, but CJ, how do we know then? How do we know if we don't have a license, if we get rid of the license, how do we know that those felons can't carry? How do you know that now? Do you seriously think that felons are trying to go out there and get a license knowing that they can't get a license? Here's the thing. A lot of people are felons, not because they committed a crime, but because they could not afford an attorney to defend themselves. And so what they did was they took plea deals. They took plea deals for a minor felony offense in exchange for probation, maybe some community service, maybe only a month in jail, as opposed to maybe they're facing 30 years in jail. And a lot of these people are scared because prosecutors scare the living piss out of them in order to achieve a conviction. And so a lot of people are convicted of felonies and are considered felons, not because they committed a felony, but because they couldn't afford under our system to defend themselves. The police and the government have unlimited resources to hammer you, to do whatever they want to you. Look, I've got a misdemeanor on my record, not because I committed a crime, but because they were able to stack the deck in a court case and because they were able to create the elements that led to a conviction. That's just the way the court system is working. And so once a felon is released from society or from prison, especially, let's say that person was a gang member, right? Well, once that person is released and decides he or she wants to go about living his own life, doesn't that person also have a right to self-defense once they're released out of prison? Doesn't someone who is in society have a right to defend themselves from having their home broken into? How easy would it be? Look, if I were a criminal and I were a smart criminal, right? If you are a registered sex offender, you're most likely a felon. So if you're a felon and you're a registered sex offender, think about this. The government actually tells criminals where you live because you're required to register, and that registration is public. You can go right now on the internet and find out what sex offenders live in your neighborhood, and you can pinpoint them by address. If I wanted to break into a home and have a greater chance of not having to worry about the homeowner attacking me, I would target a felon's home because I know they're not supposed to have firearms. And so therefore, the likelihood of me getting away with being able to break into that home is greater because federal law has disarmed people who have been convicted of felonies. And it doesn't matter if they've committed, these aren't violent felonies. These are just felonies. You realize writing a hot check, if it's over a certain amount, or maybe it's even under a certain amount, but you've had, because you don't make a lot of money, perhaps you've written several hot checks over the course of a limited period of time, and therefore now you're a felon because you wrote 3 or 5 or whatever that number is, hot checks, and your pay, and when the check cashed, you were floating that check hoping that it wouldn't cash before your money got deposited. Well, guess what? That's a felony. And a lot of people don't get convicted for that, but they plead guilty because they know that if they try to fight it, 1, they can't afford it, and it's going to be worse. And 2, they'll probably spend a lot of time in prison. So what they do is they plead guilty in exchange for probation or community service or restitution. Now these people are felons, whether they did or did not commit a crime. When I was going through my court cases, actually both of my court cases, one of them got, anyway, they tried to give me all kinds of plea deals. Well, just plead to this, and we'll give you, we'll just drop it all. You'll have 3 months of probation. Oh, just plead to that. A lot of these felons, these people who are felons, are poor minority individuals who cannot afford a good attorney. And let's face it, public defenders All they care about is getting a lot of them, the majority of them. All they want is a plea deal. They want this case gone because they're not getting paid a lot of money to defend these people. And they definitely don't want a protracted court case. So all they do is they try to get their client to plea out. And so they might be charged with a really heinous crime. And that person's like, look, I didn't commit this crime. I didn't do it. Well, you're facing 30 years in prison. But look, here, I've talked to the prosecutors. If you just plead to this intent to commit, it's a third-degree felony. It's a minor offense. And you'll just have a year probation. And you'll pay a small fine. And we can prorate that over time so that you can pay it in installments. And then you don't have to worry about going to jail and losing your job. Now that person who didn't commit a crime is looking at like, well, heck, that sounds like a pretty good deal. I don't really want to go to prison. And what they don't think about, and this is what should be required, any plea deal, that when you offer a plea deal to somebody who's accused of a felony, as a part of that plea deal should be advised in writing, and that defendant should be required to sign a statement that says, I recognize that by accepting this plea deal, I will become a convicted felon and therefore lose my right to vote, lose my right to keep and bear arms, and lose all my other civil rights. Because a lot of people don't realize that. They think they're getting a good deal. Instead of 30 years in prison, they realize, oh, I'm just going to get probation or I'm just going to get community service. This will go away in a year and I'm good to go. It doesn't go away. You've still got that felony conviction, and now you lose your rights for the rest of your life. Does that person who's got a felony conviction, for example, driving way too fast on a highway, do you know it's a felony if you're like in some states for driving 30 miles over the speed limit? For street racing, that's a felony. Even if it's on a back road, even if it's on a country road and nobody around, and now you lose your right to keep and bear arms. So do felons, especially in these cases like Martha Stewart and some of these other nonviolent crimes, these white-collar crimes, tax evasion of all things. If I'm smart enough that I can keep the government from stealing more of my money, although it might not be in a legal fashion, if I find some way to cheat the government out of stealing my money, that's a felony. And if I get caught, I lose my right to keep. Who did I hurt? I didn't hurt anybody. I just kept the government from hurting me by stealing more of my money. If people are safe to be let out of prison and put back into society, they should be safe enough to regain their rights. A felon, like Martha Stewart and others, has every right to defend herself in public, as you and I do. If you don't want violent felons to have their right to keep and bear arms restored, then don't let violent felons out of prison. We have to admit one of two things. Either prison is designed to reform, re-educate, and to basically get people to atone for their crimes, or it's a failure. So it's either a failure and we need to fix the prison system, or the prisons are designed to make people better citizens of society, and therefore when they're released, we should treat them as if, okay, you've done your time, let's move on. And the only time their past should come back to haunt them is if they're charged again for the same crime or even another crime, because then now you start, and every crime that you're convicted of, then the sentence should be extended. Okay, teach these people a lesson. Get rid of cable in our prisons. Get rid of all these benefits. Make prison something that nobody wants to go to. We need to reform our judicial system. Constitutional carry does not allow, as it currently stands, does not change any of that. It doesn't allow felons to carry. It doesn't allow spouse abusers to carry or domestic abusers. It doesn't allow gang members to carry. It doesn't allow mentally ill people to carry. It doesn't allow drug users to carry. It doesn't do any of that. If you can lawfully purchase, possess, and own a firearm, that's it. If you're a law-abiding citizen, you don't have to beg the government for permission to exercise your right, your inalienable right to self-defense, your inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of property, which is what John Locke originally intended, although it was changed to the pursuit of happiness. Happiness meant property. And so your right to defend your property, that's what constitutional carry is. So as you talk to your legislators, let them know, look, sign on to you need to sign on 357. Why won't you? What are your reservations to keeping and bearing arms? Well, I'm worried about the fact that people won't get training. John Lott just testified in Kentucky when they just passed their constitutional carry bill. And he does a lot of research into social science, sociology, does a lot of gun violence research. That's their words, not mine. Research into violence involving firearms. There you go. And what he found, his studies show, is that in states where constitutional carry has been passed, especially recently, keep in mind, in 2013, there were only 6 states with constitutional carry. I'm sorry, 5. 5 states with constitutional carry. Today, there are 16. That's a more than 300% increase. And he said in those states where constitutional carry has been passed, not less people have been getting training, more people have been getting training. And not only are these people getting training, but that training is more practical. Would you rather pay $60 or $80 or $100 for a class that you sit there and all the person lectures you on is the law, as is current in our license to carry class? I can go and read the law if I want online. I can go and read the statutes, or I can go to Open Carry Texas and find the law, or I can ask someone from Open Carry Texas or the NRA for information on the law. I can go to Texas Law Shield or Self-Defense Fund and find out what the law is. I can do that without paying someone to tell that to me. And most gun owners, if you're going to carry a firearm, I don't know a single gun owner that carries a firearm on a daily basis that doesn't know when, where, and how they can carry, for the most part. Now, we do get questions, hey, some weird, can I do this? Can I do that? And those are always going to happen whether you've taken the class or not. As a matter of fact, the people that ask me those questions have a license. So obviously the current training isn't helping them with that. But would you rather pay $60, $80, $100 for a class that teaches you, where you sit there and you learn the law and you learn what the government wants you to know about safe gun handling, all that kind of stuff? Or would you rather pay $60, $80, $100 for real training that teaches you how to unholster quickly, how to get on target quicker, how to ensure that you can unholster and get on target without, having a negligent discharge, how to properly aim, more practical type solutions, how to defend yourself in a home, how to defend yourself in a vehicle, because all these things are different. How to defend yourself in a crowded place. That's the kind of training that more people, according to John Lott, that more people seek out as constitutional carry laws are passed. Because now, instead of spending upwards of $100 on a stupid class that the Department of Public Safety is telling me to take, and by the way, that training is dictated by the Department of Public Safety, now I can spend that $100 on some real training, some actual hands-on a gun training on how to handle a misfire, how to handle a malfunction, how to do a quick reload if needed. That is the kind of training that more people need to get. Call your representative, tell them to support House Bill 357. 16 states right now have a constitutional carry, which is the unlicensed open and concealed carry of a firearm. 36 states have unlicensed open carry, but you still have to get a license to conceal carry. And of course, that 16 is rolled up into that 36 number. So in other words, there are 20 other states, 16 constitutional carry states, 20 constitutional open carry states, leaving only 14 states that require you to have a license to keep and bear arms openly or concealed, and Texas is in that minority. We have to fix that. Wednesday, there are a bunch of bills. If you can make it down to the Capitol, 8 o'clock, check out Open Carry Texas on Facebook. If you can make it to the Capitol in Austin at 8 o'clock, it's going to be a long day. So if you can't make it till the afternoon, please come anyway. There's going to be a lot of gun bills. Not 357, unfortunately, but while you're there, you can go and talk to your representative. We'll help you. You can go and talk to your representative and get them to try and sign on to House Bill 357. But we've got a lot of bills that we need a lot of people to come and talk on, and that's going to be this Wednesday, the 3rd of April, from 8. It's going to be a long day, folks. You'll probably, if you want to be there all day long, or if you want to be there to testify for all the pro and against all the anti-gun bills, you might be there until about 7 p.m. So if you can only be there from 8 to 12, please be there from 8 to 12. If you can only be there from 12 to 3, please be there from 12 to 3. If you can be there from 3 to 7, be there from 3 to 7, or however long it takes until all the bills are heard. But we need, even if you can just come to the Capitol, get inside, register for the bills, and then leave, because you can only be there for a few minutes. Unfortunately, you have to be at the Capitol to register for or against a bill. Even that is good enough, okay? But we need you on Wednesday to come to the Capitol. We will be in outside of the committee room E2, Echo 2.016 and .014. That's downstairs on the very bottom of the extension, far side of the Capitol. Anybody got any other questions? If you got a quick question, I'm going to give it 1 minute to call in. 866-895-6442. Looks like we already got a call. Hello, you're on Logic Nation podcast.
Am I in a wormhole?
What do you mean?
Right now, y'all are, the radio's talking about Thanksgiving.
Yeah, oh, wow. That's an old... Yeah, we're doing a best of show today because our power supply burnt out on our receiver. Or, I'm sorry, our...
Okay.
Yeah. So we're having to do a best of. You're not in a wormhole.
Okay, well, I was having a weird morning anyways, and I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, we're all having a weird morning. So what we decided to do was just do a live podcast on YouTube instead.
All right, great, bud. Thanks.
All right, take care. All right. You know what it is? It's 9 o'clock, so I bet someone's asking. Yeah, this Logic Nation.
Yeah, how come you're talking about Thanksgiving?
Well, because we are doing a best of show today. Our digital computer went down this morning.
Oh, okay.
And so we can't transmit at all. So we should have that fixed this afternoon.
I thought maybe I was going nuts.
Yeah. No, you're not in a wormhole. We're all good.
Okay.
All right. Bye. All right. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and hang up the podcast here. Let's see. Do you have any advice for advancing 2146 licensed school carry? I wish. I don't know what. I'm telling you, this that was from Sean. This legislative session is just not shaping out to be a good one for gun rights. Look, you want to know what the NRA's priority is this session? The NRA's priority is protecting apartment owners or renters as well as condominium owners for being able to carry to and from their vehicle. That's it. That's what the NRA is fighting. They're not fighting for constitutional carry. They're not fighting for licensed school carry, K through 12, which is what SB 2146 would do. This is Bob Hall's bill. They're not fighting for meaningful gun rights legislation. They're fighting to prevent condominiums and apartments. I mean, and this is an important issue. I mean, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't do anything to most people. It doesn't affect most gun owners. And all the bill does is it would prevent condominiums and apartment owners, and this is House Bill 302, from banning the carry of a firearm from your apartment to your car, from your car to your apartment. That's it. It's insane. And of course, because the NRA pads the pockets of so many Republican politicians, they only care about what the NRA cares about. And since the NRA doesn't care about constitutional carry, listen, and I'm not kidding about this. The NRA has done zero, nada to get co-authors and co-sponsors for House Bill 357. Do you know who's doing that? Open Carry Texas, Lone Star Gun Rights, Gun Owners of America, and the National Association for Gun Rights, or Texas Gun Rights, which is their state affiliate. Those are the only organizations that are fighting for constitutional carry. And those are the only people that are responsible for all the names that you see on that list. Guess who got Valerie Swanson to sign on to constitutional carry? It was me. I went and talked to her, had a good conversation with her, and she signed on earlier this month. I've been into several politicians' offices, Republicans, supposedly pro-gun politicians, and they're not signing on to this. Why? Because the NRA is not in there talking to them about this. The NRA is in there talking to them about House Bill 302 and the other bill that would allow, I think it's 195. I can't remember the name off the top of my head right now, but it's the one that in cases of an emergency, a disaster, a natural disaster, when a mandatory evacuation orders issued, that those people can carry without a license. So you're talking 0.1% of Texans that will be affected 0.1% of the time being able to carry without a license, and only during a specific set of time. That's what the NRA is pushing this year, instead of actual gun rights. The Republicans are cowards this session. They've retreated into a shell. They took a shellacking this last election, and now they're scared. And instead of doing the right thing and acting like conservatives and recognizing, because, you know, I was at the speaker's office, and the speaker's people even told me, look, we see the writing on the walls. You know, I mean, the Democrats might have a majority next time. So that's why they're not taking a stand on anything. Instead of actually taking a stand. Look, here's my thoughts. Maybe I'm crazy. If you knew you were going to lose, or you thought you were going to lose control of the legislature, would you want to pass less conservative legislation or more conservative legislation that they would have to repeal? Because you know you're not going to get anything passed if they win control of either house. So why would you retreat into a shell and just try to maintain the status quo? No, now is the time, especially when you feel like you're about to lose something. Now is the time to push your agenda, not later. And I guarantee you, Republicans, if you go out there and you push your conservative values and you defend them, you will be rewarded with votes. If you act like Democrats, which is what this legislature is doing, if you act like Democrats, Republicans are going to stay home because they're not going to want to vote for one of two liberals. They're just going to say, what's the point? If I vote for the incumbent Republican, I'm voting for a liberal, and I'm definitely not going to vote for the Democrat, so I might as well just stay home. And then guess what? The Democrats come in force, and they vote, and the next thing you know, we've got a Democrat legislature and a blue state. All right, folks, you guys take care. Have a great day. I know this is sort of an interesting, weird kind of podcast. Hopefully tomorrow we've got all our issues fixed, and we don't have to do a best of show, and we'll be back live again. I'm actually going to be at the Capitol on Tuesday, tomorrow, so I won't be on the show, but David and Luann will be back, and then I'll be back Wednesday and back at the Capitol again Wednesday as well. So you guys take care, be safe, be free. Thanks for tuning in, and God bless you all, and God bless President Trump.